Howdy. Howdy. All right, just a few announcements, guys. If you haven't done the sexual harassment training, please do so. We won't be able to register you guys if you haven't done so. There's a two-part. In order for us to get that hold lifted, you have to do at least part 1, and then second part comes 30 days after. Announcement 2, veterans, don't forget to renew your benefits for the spring. And then the third announcement is going to be done by Mr. J.T. Taylor. J.T., right. All right, so do that sexual harassment if you haven't done so, please, in order for us to get you registered. Sure. Second part is 30 days after you've done the first one. You might want to go back and check there.
30 days
after you did the first.
You'll get an email.
Yeah, but you'll get an email. But as long as you do the first part, your hold should be lifted, and we can register you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as long as you do that first part. All right. Then veterans, please don't forget to renew your benefits. And then third announcement will be done by Mr. J.T. Taylor.
All right. Oh, no, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. No, keep your money. Please, Dr. Sheila, please, please. Is this thing on? I'm gonna guess that works. All righty, good deal. That's all right. This will make sure they're paying attention. All right, hello out there, everyone out there in Radio Land and everyone that's here present. About a couple of weeks ago, we started an Operation R Squared petition. I think you guys were all party to that. And without any further ado, rumor has it that one of us has ticked the calendar 1 year. And actually, that person ticked the calendar 1 year, 16 hours ago. Does anybody know who that is by chance? All right, well, come right up, young man. Yes. So, Dr. Sheila, we picked up this R Squared card for you on behalf of the team, and we did that. And we also know that you are a connoisseur of wine. And so, get that bottle. I found the best bottle that our model would give us. I found the best bottle. It's an Australian brand, Yellowtail. It was $4.99. The guy at Kroger's assured me it was one of the best bottles that they have. And Dr. Sheila, we spared no expense on that. In all fairness, though, keep that. It's to yours to drink. I know you'll want to save that. And it's a good year, too. It's 2016. So that's a great, great, great year. That was the year we started the program. However, in addition to signing the cards, we actually did pick him up gift cards. You know, Dr. Sheila is always talking about wine, so we know he loves wine. I'm sitting here thinking there's no way we can afford to buy him a bottle of wine that he likes, so thus the Australian brand that we got him. And we got some gift cards here that should be enough for you to get at least one glass of wine for yourself and one glass of wine for the Mrs. Sheila the next time you guys are in town. It's been a pleasure. Happy birthday, and many more to you, my friend.
Thank you, guys.
And don't tap on that. She likes it.
I appreciate the thought. So people said, what are you doing on your birthday? I said, I'm going to talk about time series models for 3 hours. I'm in heaven. Thank you. And that brand that I'm going to conveniently forget because I don't want to get sued, they used to make what we call in Australia raisins and sultanas. So where they grow the grapes is not really a grape growing region. That's all I'll say. And the glass apparently for the bottle is first rate. That's a good deed. All right. Thank you, guys. So we're going to finish the last topic about time series tonight. We're going to talk about the project. But what I want to do is, and we'll have a breakout where I've got an exercise for you to do with bivariate autoregressive moving average models. So we're going to start with an example where we know the answer. Then we're going to go down to the deep end of the swimming pool and jump in. And then the class exercise is somewhere in between. Okay? But before that, I wanted to talk about 685, where we are. So today, you should have received an email with the latest version of your feedback. that correct? Is there a group that didn't?
I don't think so.
Okay, then there's one group. I'll talk with you offline. So all but one group received the written feedback. I've looked at these, and let's start with the great. There are a number of projects that are just extraordinary. Just extraordinary. On track to make a really big contribution. There are a bunch that are in good shape, right? And there are a few that are just really problematic. So we've had a lot of misadventure, people changing jobs, projects disappearing, and having to do restarts. But here's the deal, guys. I don't make up the rules, and the rules are very clear. You have to pass the oral exam in order to get the degree. Right? And we have to be front and centre after spring break. Because we have until early April if you want to graduate in May. That's a university rule applied to everyone. Are we clear about that? Now, so I have supervised more than 150 of these master's projects. If you count my MS statistics ones and my analytics ones, it's getting up probably close to 200. Never happened in analytics, but in MS statistics, I've asked people to not defend that week, but come back a few weeks later. And it could get to the state where you have to come and redo a semester, right? If you're not in good enough standing to get through the exam. And ultimately, it'll be up to your project coach to decide that. So I don't want to scare people, but I don't want to say, we're all good, everything's great. Yes? So if you have any doubt which group you're in, I suggest you talk to your project coach. Is that a good plan? Yes? So if you think about it, we have this big break. Well, if you think about my life, the biggest break I get from analytics is about the 18th of December to the 18th of January. Right? And you've got to get a lot done. Now, if you happen to be in my group, well, I've got another job now, right? I have another job, this institute director, and I need to have some time off. So you want to not just say, I'm just going to wait till the 18th of December and I'm going to do all of my work on the project. I encourage you to talk to your project coach sooner rather than later. Are we good? Now, I've looked at the feedback. You can get the drift in about 20 seconds about is the coach happy or not, right? Is that clear? Yes? There's really not, they're all pretty direct, aren't they?
Yep.
Yes? So, any questions about the 685? So, yeah, Sam.
It hasn't been really clear to me. I know that there's some external board. What's their involvement? I mean, are you just presenting to them?
Yes, you're going to present to 2 people within the statistics group and 1 person outside of statistics.
Statistics group meaning?
It's the Department of Statistics. So you have been aware of your committee from when you did your degree plan. It had their names. You entered them.
Oh, right.
You entered them.
So
They're the people who are going to present. You're going to present to.
for the final project?
For the final project.
Is there also intermediate meetings with them, or?
Well, it depends on you. It's up to you. Right? It's up to you. So some of the external people really like to get involved. Others say, send me your slides a week ahead and show up to the exam. It depends. But your project coach is also your project champion, right? And let me speak in the every one of the people I coach represents me. So I want them to do a good job. I've never had a problem on the day. Right? I've never had a problem on the day. I've had a problem before the day that we fixed, but I've never had a problem on the day. Is that good, Sam? And then in the first part of the semester, we're going to have talk about resume writing, LinkedIn, how to get the most out of LinkedIn, managing your career, so stuff like that, which should be really interesting. But the most important thing is to get this project. We need working models, right? We need working models as soon as possible. Well, the people I coach are all nodding because they know what I'm like. I said to one person who's had some misadventure, they got these 4 beautiful time series. I said, mate, I wouldn't have been able to sleep. I would have stayed up all night to fit those 4 models. It just looks fantastic. Right? But I'm weird, but I've made a whole career out of it. Pays the bills. Are we good?
We're good.
Any questions about that?
Nope.
No. Okay. Good. Let's talk about your time series project. That's due next week. So I want them, and there'll be a place online where you can submit, I want the written feedback, the written project by 12 noon. It gives me the afternoon to look through. Is that good? Makes sense? Yes? Then you're going to give a 15-minute presentation, 1-5. That's plenty of time. Now, what sort of presentation do we want? Well, let me tell you what I don't want. I don't want all of the details. Imagine you have to do 7 iterations to take account of the outlines. Do I want to see details of all the 7 iterations? No. I'm going to trust your time series modelling steps, right? I'm going to be looking like a hawk to see if the model's valid. Yes, you know my hot buttons. Is the model valid? How well does it predict? And then, what question have you answered? Right? What question have you answered? So you might have started off to do a big transfer function model, right? And you try all these things and the transfer functions don't work very well. You can still model why. You can still talk about how the transfer function model doesn't work very well. That's interesting in itself, right? But notice here, this is about a business setting, 2 competing models. Are we good?
Do you want details on the outliers that you decide to?
Well, in the written report, yes, and especially if the outlier is something really interesting. This is September 11th, or this is the 2009 recession, or with Chipotle, that's when they had the health scares. So if it tells a story, absolutely. Well, this is when the AT&T Time Warner merger got blocked, right? If it tells a story, that's part of the answer, isn't it? You get the written report to show your time series expertise. I'm hoping we can step up a different level. So think about it. Let's go around what some of the projects are. Alejandro, you're doing candy sales, right?
Yep.
So, there are going to be big holiday effects. That'll be interesting, one. Diego, you're doing temperature and CO2. That's pretty interesting, isn't it? Laura Rutledge, tell us about your project?
Yes, we're predicting software service renewals over time using business predictors.
Okay, one of the other distance students, tell me about your project. Come on, guys.
We're all speaking at the same time, drawing each other out.
Hi, this is John. I'm predicting denied insurance claims.
Okay, good. Sandman, we were talking before. What is your project about?
Rig count prediction?
Rig count.
Yeah.
Yeah. Picked an easy one, didn't you, mate?
Yep.
So you can see they're right across the spectrum, are they not? They sound really interesting, but what we want to do is not get down in the weeds, right? Is in the presentation stay up and say what we found, right? What we found, and so what? What did we learn? Is this a practically useful model? Are we good? Just think about all the grief you give me every week. It's It's my turn to do it the other direction. Yes? So are we good with that? And the reason I don't get you to do videos is I just don't have time to, when I did it for the other group, I kept watching and rewatching the videos. I've just got to rip the Band-Aid off, watch what you do, make a few notes, and then spend the next week grading them, right, at the end of the semester. The other thing you'll see I've done, well, so any questions about the project? Are we good? I will do a random draw, and you'll be in a random order. You can watch each other's presentation.
So 15 minutes, do you want everybody to present or?
Ah, great question, Diego. I want as many people involved as possible. No passengers. Okay? Now, it mightn't be possible for everybody, but you understand what I mean. Yes? Any other questions about this? No? Good. Okay. I had put up the two previous final exams. I'm going to do a course, I put it this afternoon. I got requests to have them for Thanksgiving. And I will put up a course summary, but I haven't done that yet. And you'll see the exams are true, false. No reasons given, just true and false. So I spend a lot of time finding models that are either terrific or not so terrific, and then writing prose. And you have to maneuver your way through that. So if you go and interview with some of these companies, they give you a report. Most of the time the report is well written and the models are correct, but sometimes it's not, and you have to explain to vice presidents what's wrong. So you have to be able to see both sides. Everybody can write a SAS program at this point. You don't need to test that. And I've found that this is just, it turns out to be a wonderful experience.
So, Dr. Shearer, you mentioned that it's going to be true or false.
It's true or false, yes, true or
Full
false.
exam?
Sorry?
All the exam is going to be...
35 questions, true, false. So you'll see that there's a transfer function question. There'll be a question where I show you some output from SAS Forecast Studio. I fit models and I make statements. This is a valid model because this is a parsimonious model. You have to say it's true or false. I found some commentary that was printed and asked you to decide whether it was true or false. I nearly wet myself, I was so excited when I saw it.
That's exciting.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, for next semester, you mentioned we could have access to some SAS special training, like
Yes.
Bayesian and...
Bayesian, there's SAS Bayesian and there's SAS
Survival analysis.
survival analysis.
So-
That will go up in January.
When? Can we have it before we start classes or
Send me an email and I'll find out. Okay?
maybe before 15, yeah.
So how about if we get it early in the new year?
Yeah.
Yes? Send me an email because I won't remember. Politely asking me, can we have access to it at the start of January? And I'll go and see if we can do that. Yeah.
Next term, we all filled up a survey for the lectures.
Yeah, and you got everybody, they split. It was not 50-50, but it wasn't that different from that. So you got what you picked. A runny boat. We good? Both of the professors are excited.
How does it work? So we're going to be split in 2 rooms for 1 day, or how does it...
Yeah, so I don't remember which day it is, but one of the days I know that Dr. Jasperson likes to teach out of the flat classroom because he can walk around between the desks. So the elective will be on 1 day. The financial modelling is typically in this room, and Dr. J likes the flat classroom. That's what he's done in the past. And the other day you'll all do spatial statistics with Dr. John. Is that good? Yes, okay. I look forward with much eagerness to these projects next week. So what I'm going to do is go through these class notes. There is a class exercise and then I'm going to wander around the groups. Some of the groups I've already helped with their project through office hours and other things. If I haven't had a chance to help you, you'll get first dibs tonight. Does that sound good? Mm-hmm. All right. The last piece of the puzzle are called vector or varma models. we're just going to do bivariate. You can do more than bivariate. You could do trivariate, three things, 4. Let's just start with 2 because that's complicated enough. And here, for instance, quarterly net sales at Home Depot and Lowe's. There's no need for a transfer function because the sales, there shouldn't be a lag, should there? If I say the market is great for hardware, right, it should affect Lowe's and Home Depot at the same time. The transfer function business, what is that? We do the pre-whitening to figure out what the lags are, right? Right, what the lags are. So credit card defaults. How many months after that does that affect defaults on business loans? Not instantaneous, right? Not instantaneous. But here, we've got 2 related things. The example we're going to look at is consumer price index for new vehicles and used vehicles. If I tell you it's a great month for selling vehicles, it should be a great month for selling both new vehicles and old vehicles. If we're in a recession and you can't sell a vehicle, it should affect both new vehicles and used vehicles, right? So you see the difference? There's no need to do transfer function. Okay. So one of the simplest is a bivariate order regressive model. Bivariate, so we've got 2 variables, y and z. Why did I pick z? I think of x as a predictor. So I picked y and z. Everybody good? No other reason. So the first equation says yt minus mu is a function of phi11 of yt1 minus mu plus another term which involves z. So all we're doing here is we're adding another term. So this is the y piece that we know and love, but there's a new piece that says sales this quarter for Lowe's are affected by sales last quarter for Lowe's and sales last quarter by Home Depot, right? If they're both high, if both stores had record sales in the last quarter, we would think that the next quarter should be good for one of them. Are we good with that? So we've got 2 AR coefficients. The same with z. We have zt minus mu2 is a function of zt minus 1 plus a function of yt minus 1. So yt depends on yt minus 1 and zt minus 1, and zt depends on zt minus 1 and yt minus 1. So the whole 9 yards is these coefficients here.
Excuse me.
Yes? Yeah, hold on, one at a time.
There's no theta term in bottom.
Well, this is VAR. I haven't got the marked part yet. This is vector order regressive. So we're gonna fit a seasonal varema. We're gonna have a seasonal term, and we're gonna have a differencing term, and we're gonna do the vector bit. But I'm just starting crawling on my hands and knees. Are we good?
So when we did 608, when we had 2 predictors that were strongly correlated, we would try to select the variables because of multicollinearity, right?
Well, again, in 608, we've already done this. What we're doing there was we're doing regression where the predictors are thought to be not time series.
Sure, but so here the correlation or the multicollinearity, it's okay.
Again, you're trying to utilize the multicollinearity. You're trying to pick 2 things that are related so you can use the competitor's information to help yourself, right?
Because I'm thinking if YT and ZT are so correlated, let's say they're really, really good correlated, the fees could be very unstable, right?
They could. And if you find me a practical example of that, I'll give you a bottle of wine out of my collection, okay? All right?
The latest bottle.
Or the yellow tail.
You write it down. I just had more than 30 dozen bottles of wine delivered. I had to my home my full allocation of wines, apart from one vineyard which comes after Thanksgiving. Boxes.
Enough for the weekend.
Enough for the weekend. Yeah, I'm going to have a straw and a pizza, mate, and I'm going to have a fantastic time grading those projects. So, I did this thing with a colleague where we were trying to predict sales of a snack food. And let's make it really simple. 3 pack sizes, small, medium and large. If the medium size was on sale, most people will buy more mediums and save money. And so that affects the sales of large and small. So if you model all these 3 of these together, you just kill the separate models, right? Because they affect each other so much. That's what you're trying to look for. If things are substitutes, this works well. And you want high correlation between the two. You still want stationary models, and we've got to do differencing and other things. All right, good. So if you fit this model, and at the end of the day, these cross terms are essentially 0, it's saying you're wasting your time. Right? That knowing Z doesn't provide much extra information about Y. So imagine the AR coefficient is 0.12. Then knowing the other one doesn't help you a lot, right? But we'll see. So I'm going to use ProcIML, and there's a program called Varma Sim, simulate from a vector autoregressive moving average. And here I'm going to just do the AR piece. So, I put the means equal to 0, just to make things simple. I put the phi1 coefficient 1.1, this one's minus 0.5, this one's 0.6, and this one is 0.3. We get Y and Z, and we've got 520 points, right? 520 points. We're going to use the first 500 to build a model, and we're going to then predict the last 20. Are we good? So, I just deleted the rows, and then save that as a SAS dataset. Now, this is the code for fitting Varmas in SAS. There's this proc called Varma X. Or Varmax, they call it. Varmax. So you have to tell it what the variables are, Y and Z, and here P equals 1. So that's going to fit an AR1 model, a bivariate AR1 model, to Y and Z. Imagine if we thought it was AR1 MA2, we would have put P equals 1, Q equals 2. Are we good? Sorry, if it was AR1 MA2, we'd put P equals 1 and Q equals 2. We're going to see examples. Now, we can get the minimum information criteria. This says, print out for me the SBC value for a bunch of models. Right? So you know how we do model comparison in JUMP? This is a version of that, where if we don't have seasonality, it works great. When we have seasonality, we get some issues, but here we're in the Little League and it goes great. It says, for each model that you look at, print out the information criteria. Because one of the things we're going to look at is, how do we know that this was AR1? How do we know that this is AR1? Well, we knew because that's the way we generate. And we're going to look at plots and other things, knowing the answer to see if we can figure out any patterns. Is that good? And then we're going to jump in the deep end with 2 real examples. All right. Yes? So that's print the correlations, the autocorrelations and the partial autocorrelations to lag file. P core is the autocorrelations. P core is the partials. So here's the model. So we got 0 for mu. So they're good. We had 1.2 for the first one, minus 0.5 for the next one. We had 6.6 for this. Sorry, Sam, another typo, sir. That should be 2.2. This one's 0.3. So you can see that we got the truth back pretty well, did we not? Yes? We got the truth back pretty well. Any questions about that? That's just the output. Notice that if you look at this, this is y, and this is yt minus 1. This is y, and this is zt minus 1. So you know that the coefficient of z in y is minus 0.54. Right? And here, the coefficient of y in z is 0.61. So this column is really important. This tells you what it's associated with. Are we good? Yes?
Dr. Shearer, no
Yes.
problem. So, for CT minus 1, the coefficient is...
Negative. So, tell me, which one are you looking at?
I was trying to find theta 1, 2 into the table.
Okay? So, theta 1, 2 is the coefficient of y and zt minus 1. That's this one here.
Okay, but that's not what it says down there, right? Go to the last line of your slide.
Yeah, minus 0.5. That's what that's the true value. But I generated it and I got minus 0.54.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was looking at the paper, sorry.
Are we good?
Yes,
It's very confusing the first time you look, is it not?
I didn't, that is good.
Yeah. So this is my savior. This column. I look very carefully at that column. Because that tells you what it goes with, right? Yes? So we're in y, and this is the coefficient of z, t minus 1. Okay? This is z, and this is the coefficient of yt minus 1.
Which statement your SAS code actually produce that table? Or is it not important?
Model. Method equals our model. Okay? I just put two variables, y and z, and then put ml. What's the question goes?
The same one, method ML is what gives you this output?
Yeah. It says, please fit a bivariate AR1 model using maximum likelihood. Right? You could put YZ cubed and do trivariate. Or YZW.
So, excuse me, on that piece of code,
Yeah.
is that a typo that method ML is repeated twice, or?
It's probably not needed.
Okay.
Probably not needed.
So, Dr. Shearer, if you have three variables,
Yeah.
how would the equation look like? So, for example, can you do it up here in 1 and 2?
So if you had three variables, I mean, we're still only learning two, but if you want to do three, here we go. If you had three variables, you'd have plus phi13, right? Wt minus 1 minus mu3.
That's going to be in the other equation too? And just in y3?
No, it's going to be in both. Hold on, I'm using the little mouse here.
My bad.
Yeah. So here it's going to be plus phi23, right? Wt minus 1 minus mu3. But let me just say, it's a big step to go from 1 to 2 series, right? I wouldn't be trying to jump in and put the 3 and 4 together. Let's just see how we do with bivariate. Yes, Barry.
Are they both influencing each other, or is there any, like we had last time with the direction of influence, or that doesn't matter here?
So you'll see that sometimes what happens to new cars affects both new cars and used cars, and what happens to used cars doesn't really affect new cars.
Right. You'll still work with this?
You work with this. What we're going to do is we're going to constrain some of the terms to be 0.
Okay.
Right? We're only going to end up with the terms that we need. We don't need generally all the cross terms.
Okay.
Are we good?
Yeah, thank you.
And isn't it interesting that, you know, imagine if Home Depot sales depend on Lowe's sales in a statistically significant way, but not the other direction. Remember in marketing this thing called clout? Come on, guys. You didn't do clout?
No.
This thing of if you drop your price, you get sales from another brand, right? And you can figure out who you get the sales from, who loses the sales. The one that gains the sales has clout. So maybe it was the guy before.
We didn't get that.
Okay.
So excuse me.
Yeah.
I know you're starting with something simple.
Yeah.
You have Y and Z with different orders.
Yeah, you can. So,
So one can be MA, the other can be A.
yeah, oh yeah. Oh, you can blow your hair back with everything.
So basically, we could say that the difference between this and a transfer function, one is a subset of the other.
No, so that's a great question, which has had a run on the final exam in many guises. I was going to discuss it at the end, so let's just put it off till the end, so we know
Sure.
and have some experience about what this is. This is kind of richer than a transfer function.
Is it the case that because you've got the two variables like this, you get multiple solutions, which is why you're minimizing SPC? You're implying, you know, how you find, you must have a plurality somewhere because you're actually minimizing SPC.
Yeah, so what you're trying to do is say, how many terms do I need? How many AR terms, how many MA terms do I need? Right? And then within that, we might need AR2 in one of the models and AR1 in only the others. But again, we're getting into all the weeds and we haven't, you know, we've jumped in the deep end and some people are drowning. Let's, you know, figure out how to swim first.
So this is what the guy that predicted rig sales, the rig count did, right?
He did a transfer function model. So Pablo, who's one of the coaches with me, his time series project last year, or was the year before, was brilliant. They looked at crime in Houston. There's a small difference between a theft and a burglary. I don't remember the definition, but they did a Varma model because the two of those things were kind of related. You either, if you're a crook, you do one or the other. Again, there's no need to know the lag. We're all talking about things matching in time, right?
And then you can put deterministic predictors here as well.
You can do all sorts of things. Well, no. No. With SAS, no. Let me just say no. The last slide talks about what we can do. Okay? So, it prints out all of these information criteria. Akaiki, corrected, that's AICC. I'm going to skip the second one for a minute, then regular AIC, then SBC, and then a final prediction error criterion, and then the Hannon-Quinn. Hannon and Quinn are two Australian guys. Ted Hannon was a very famous time series person, and his buddies used to rib him by saying his most famous act was to be bitten by the Prime Minister's dog. He worked at the Australian National University as one of the founding professors, and his house was walking distance from where the Prime Minister lives, called the Lodge. Security in the old days in Australia isn't like it is here, and he was out walking one morning and the Prime Minister's dog bit him. So all his buddies said, you know, did you go and get an injection? They said, did the dog go and get an injection? Anyway, Hannon and Quinn's information thing. Call me old-fashioned, I like to use SBC. Why do I like to use SBC? Because it focuses on valid, parsimonious models, right? We don't want to have any additional terms here. So, you get for free, it looks 5 orders, up to MA5 and up to AR5. And because I told it SBC, it's not surprising the smallest value of SBC corresponds to MA of order 0 and AR of order 1. You see how to read that table? Right? It's not surprising because we know the answer. We generated a model which was AR1 in both Y and Z. Are we good? Now, if you want more than 5, you can put, you know, up to 10 or whatever. Yes, subs.
The numbers in this slide, do they correspond to the previous slide, or was that just a random example?
No, they should. That's good. Again, they probably subtracted some constant. Right? They probably subtracted some constant. Yes, because what you're doing is you're seeing this is 1086, and here this is something else. But it says based on SBC. Remember the days in 608 when people got really excited because the SBC numbers between jump and SAS didn't match? It's because of whether you put the constants in or not. So again, you guys worry about way too much. If this says it's the SBC ordering and it matches the model that we use to generate the data, I'm good. All right? Now, here's our bread and butter. Correlations and partial correlations. I'm going to show you that when we get to seasonal models, it's hard to fit all possible models. So we've got to look at correlations and partial autocorrelations. So, before we look at this, what do we think should happen? If it's AR1, the autocorrelation should go on for a while and be significant. The partial should cut off at lag 1. Yes? Good. So let's look at the autocorrelations. They go on here up to lag 5. And here also up to lag 5. Minus minus means significant negative. Dot means not significant. Okay, so we've got a lot of autocorrelation. Now when we look at the partials, apart from this minus and this minus, everything cuts off after lag 1. Right? Everything cuts off after lag 1. We're going to get into the micro details of the chart at the moment, but that's saying to me, think about AR1, isn't it? Yes? Imagine we had seasonal, it was quarterly, and we had lag 4, lag 8, lag 12. We'd be looking at the autocorrelations and the partials, wouldn't we?
Yep.
Yes? Yes? Now, specifically, let's look. So if we take Z, the first one is negative. So it does Z and Y. That partial correlation is minus 0.27. That's one of the reasons I put in a negative parameter. Notice that's Z then Y. And then here, this is, so the way it goes is the first thing is the first letter. So that's Y and that's Y. And this is the next thing, which is Z and Z. Okay? That's very confusing, right? Very confusing. So you have to be careful. Yep, that's why I like this example, because that minus gets us out of jail. If they were all positives, we wouldn't know what corresponded to what, would we? Right? Y goes with Y. You just read across the table. Z goes with Y, and then Z goes with Z. Are you good with that? If you read across the table, it's minus and plus because Z goes with minus 0.27 and plus 0.70.
Just out of curiosity, Dr. Sheether, would this end up going like three-dimensional or no?
Yes, you can do 3, you can do 4, but good luck with that. Good luck. I wish you good luck, mate.
I was just curious.
So we've done small, medium and large for pack sizes, and 3 was hard. Right, 3 was hard. But I've seen good examples where 2 can really help you. Are we good?
So if it was plus, if it was 2 clusters,
Yep.
then it's still going to be.
It's still, I don't care about the sign here. It dies out after lag 1, the partials. So it says to me AR1. The reason I made one of the coefficients negative is for us to be able to figure out what went with what in the table. I remember going back and changing this so I could understand the table. Sam.
So if you have a period and then a sign, the whole thing talks about it because at least one of them is not significant.
If I have a period and a sign.
With the dot and then the sign. Like 3.
Yeah, so again, I'm going to make a white-haired judgment based on my experience that says if I have just one of them and an isolated other thing, which we've done before, I'm going to start by ignoring it. And if that doesn't work and I fail the white noise test, I'm going to go back and look at that term. But I'm always going to start simple. You'll see that if we do an ARMA 3.3, we have parameters up the wazoo. Right? So you want to start small and add if you need. Yes? So, here are the prediction errors for Y and the forecast. Interestingly, there seem to be a few outliers. Is there not? And I generated the model, the data from a known model with normal distributed errors. Just is what it is, right?
What is the shaded area? What is 0%?
That's plus or minus 2 standard deviations. Now, have a look at the white noise. I'm going to show you the opposite soon, but have a look at that baby. Sort of like too good to be true, right?
Too good.
Yes? And there are the forecasts. Notice that it converges towards the mean, right? Converges towards the mean, because it's AR1. Now, let's have a look at Z. Have a look at the white noise. What do you think if you saw that? You wouldn't be real happy, would you? So I monkeyed with a few seeds to get a plot like this, just to show you what can happen.
So this wasn't one of those natural 2018 class things? You had to
No, I've had this for a few years, mate. Didn't pop out just for you guys. I found it for the last couple of years.
want to make sure we weren't being jinxed or anything.
Yeah. So it just says, you've got to be careful here, right? Sometimes, well, here we'd say it doesn't look really like a valid model, does it? In about 15 of these, we've got 4 of them over the 0.05 threshold. That's too many. But we fitted the correct model, yes? Sometimes the correct model doesn't look like it passes the fit test. We're making an error. An innocent person is getting put in jail. Yes? And then here are our forecasts. Now, what you do in practice is fit separate models to Y and Z and see how much of a benefit you get, right, from the bivariate. So how much better do we do by looking at the bivariate? Now, I can tell you that we need to consider this here because look at the cross terms. The cross terms. Here this is Z and this is y. Look how statistically significant this is. The t-value of 20. Look at this. This is y with z and a t-value of minus 20. So we have very statistically significant cross terms, right? That's the way I set this up. So in theory, we should do better, right, by modelling these together. You get it? Now, if those terms are not statistically significant, you just stop. You say, I don't need to do the bivariate thing. You throw that in the trash, and you fit a separate y and a separate z model. Are we good? Or you question, have you got the right model for the bivariate y and z? Yes? So, I'm going to fit separate models for y and z. Let's look. Here's y. I say that looks like AR3. You agree with me? I'm very proud of this course. We learned so much in 14 weeks. Again, what's taught in master's degrees, they don't have these last two topics. We actually master this. When you do the model comparison, AR3 pops out first. Interesting that AR3, because it wasn't generated that way, was it? It was AR1 when you took account of both y and z. You fit the model, you find everything significant. Some of these other terms are quite small, minus 0.2, minus 0.17, but they're very statistically significant. The residuals pass the white noise test, so we have a valid model for y called AR3. Are we good? We go on to z. What do you think here? It's a scratch your head job, isn't it?
AL4.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be armour, but I don't know. Right? I don't know. So I'm going to be very conservative, and I'm going to do Q up to 9 and P up to 4. Why did I do that? Because this is 4 here and this is 9 there. You don't need that many, but I'm being super conservative, right? Computation is cheap, and it picks an armour 2-1. Picks armour 2-1 for Z. We fit an armour 2-1, and we get a valid parsimonious model, yes? Are we good?
Yep.
Good. So here are the forecasts. The green are from the VAR, and the blue is from the AR3 or the ARMOR 2-1. And the red is the data. They're a little bit different, aren't they? Especially in the early orders. Especially in the first few forecasts. And notice how they kind of line up after a while, because if you only have a few lags, AR is going to converge to the mean. We know that, right? Yes? Yes? And if you put this relative to the upper and the lower limits, again, they're pretty similar. Right? The blue, the VAR is a little bit better. Especially for, well, for some of the points. It's not clear. The bivariate thing is kind of a disappointment, given how strong the cross terms were. It's not a, wow, isn't that an incredible improvement on things.
So why didn't it work then?
Well,
What's the secret?
what's the secret? Well, the thing is that you really only get the first few terms based on the lags, right? Right, we're really looking at AR1 in each of them, so we're really only getting a couple of good forecasts, yes? Yes? Because after we get past 2 or 3 lags, we're estimating everything and we're going back towards the mean.
No, but I'm talking about the bivariate.
Yeah, the bivariate, it still says, tell me what was Y in the last period, tell me what was Z. Now, if you do one at a time, let me finish and you can come back. If you do one at a time, this is the first 500 values, notice that the blue is better than the red. So the VAR does give you smaller residuals when you do one step at a time. So if you do this, set this up as a game and say, I'm going to look at the data up to 99 to predict 100, and then the data up to 100 to predict 101, all these one step ahead predictions, VARs do better. But not magically better. Right? Why? Let's go back and see why. You got your question, Mary?
Yeah, let's continue.
Okay, we go back. Statistical significance doesn't mean practical significance. Let's go back and look at the coefficients. This one was 0.54 and this one was 0.61. Middling values, right? If it was 0.9 and 0.85, might be a different deal. Yes? So you've got to be careful about statistical significance versus practical significance. And that gets a run on the final exam everywhere. It's all over it. Because a lot of these people who write opinions get really excited about statistical significance when it has no practical significance. You want the price of oil to change by $50 a barrel in 1 week to affect a currency by a few cents. Really? It's statistically significant, but it's not practically significant. And I'm surprised you let me get away with it. Other groups have not. Right? You were enamored by the p-values. It's the coefficients. So guess what? Next week when you're doing this, I'm going to be all over the coefficients. If you say, I have this great model, Professor, it's fantastic. Makes me weep. I'll be weeping with sorrow if the coefficient is really small and you're banging on about statistical significance. Yes? Do we get it? Yeah. There's a mad plan for this stuff, right?
So I have a different question.
Yes, please.
I would expect the individual models to be actually AR2 models because Y depends on Z last time, Z depends on Y one time before, so that's why Y should have been Y 2 periods ago.
Yeah. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Yeah, I thought that at one point too, but I've had enough experience to know that when you do these separately, it doesn't come out like that.
Yeah.
Look at this example. Okay.
So, Dr. Shearer,
Yeah.
this makes you wonder that in real life, nothing happens independently. The true model is always something like this. So what we're finding when we analyze a single series is always a fiction that gives us the answer.
Well, again, if we're leaving holdout data and seeing how well we do. So the fiction here is we're using linear models, right? We're saying that future values of Y are affected by previous values of Y in a linear fashion, or by the error between in a linear model. That's the fiction. So sometimes, and when we can't get the white noise to behave, it's because it's not really linear at all. But here's the deal, Diego. Let everybody have their exponential smoothing model, their back of the envelope model, and you just get out your checkbook and let me and Mike Speed and Jones show up, and we'll fit some of these jobbies, and we'll always win. We'll always beat the in-house model, and you'll be able to understand the terms. It's not perfect, and I'm still a young man. In 20 years, we might be doing something else. So I'm heartened every time I teach this course. I'm enthusiastic about what we can do, but I understand what we can't do, right? And forecasting is a sobering business. Yes? Okay. And then if you look at the actual residuals over time, they're pretty close. So, we have gone in the short end of the swimming pool and we've kind of stayed afloat. Let's go and jump in the really deep end and and look at a practical example. Are we good?
We're good. That's right.
And last year was fun because we had somebody from Home Depot in the class. So yeah, I had to be really careful what I said, right? So, we've used this as an example before. There's clear evidence of increasing variability, right?
Mm-hmm.
The variability there is much more than the variability here. Yes? Yes, the same. Increasing variability. There's also, so we take a log transform, and the thing I love about the log transform is like we made up the data, because the log transform equalizes the variability in an amazing way, does it not? Yes? Interestingly, Home Depot, so if we go back here, Home Depot is up to 25 billion, 25,000 million, and Lowe's is at about 18 recently. And notice what we're trying to do is we're trying to predict 2017. We've got up to 2016. So, the mean increases, so we're going to difference. What do we see here? Very strong seasonality, yes? So we're going to difference again. Yes? And the thing I love, so the way I always do these is I develop the separate models first. That helps me get to know the data. Tell me about Home Depot and tell me about Lowe's, and then I'm going to do the joint model. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yep.
Now, notice how much simpler the PACF, the ACF and the PACF are after we've done that second difference. We have many fewer. Now, what do you think is going to be a good model? Well, for the non-seasonal part, only lag 1 seems to pop out, right? So I'm just going to put lag 1 here and here. Are we good? Now let's look at the non-seasonal part. For the seasonal part, sorry, 4 goes up to sort of 16. Somewhere in the middle it doesn't quite do, so I'm going to put the seasonal part for P is 4. And then if I'm doing MA, the only thing that pops out of my porridge in the ACF is 1. So I put 1 there. At the start of the semester, I would have made much bigger values and not gone through that value judgment. But now we know and love how to do this, right? So it comes up with 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, or 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1. They're the two best, okay? Now we do the first one, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1. What happens?
There's white noise there.
We have a problem, Houston, don't we?
Yes, we do.
There's no way you can claim that's a good equivalent to white noise, right?
Nope.
So we go to the second one on the list. Second one on the list.
Pleasing to the eyes.
Pleasing to the eyes. We see some outliers, don't we? Yes?
Mm-hmm.
We see some outliers. So now if we were doing this in the univariate game, we put this into SAS and search for outliers and level shifts, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't do outliers and level shifts with SAS or with essentially anything else for farmers. So I'm not going to do that because I want to have a head-to-head comparison between the separate models individually and the bivariate one. Is that good?
Yep.
Interesting, one question.
Yes?
What happens if you get kind of a pattern or shape into the residuals, but they do pass the white noise?
Then I just smile and say, thank you to statistical IB, we're good. Depends what the pattern is. If the pattern is like a slice of pizza, increasing variance, then I've got a problem. If the pattern looks like a fish or somebody riding a horse, then I'll just smile and say, I'm going to use that example in class on a bad day. Get everybody to smile. Okay?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Would it be one option to use the individual models to determine the outliers and then fit them in the varmar?
There isn't a mechanism well, I mean, again, if you want to start coding things by hand and all that stuff, good luck. But, so, if you do the outliers, you find a bunch. Right? So I took that jump red triangle. What did I do? Well, we all love push the jump red triangle here. Right? Create SAS job, put in the outlier, max number is 10, alpha is 0.005. Notice people aren't arguing with me anymore about that. Seems to kind of work out, right? So if we were doing univariate ones, we'd put these in, would we not? But we're not at this point. So we could improve this one, but we're not. Let's look at lows. So we do the same deal. First difference, we see the very strong seasonality, don't we? Now, what pops out of our porridge here, look at these early lags. There's really nothing much going on here, right? Bang. So what I did was 1 and 1 here and 4 and 2 there. And out popped out of my porridge 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, and 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 2. Oh, 1, 1, 0.
No, 0, 1, 0.
0, 1, 0. Again, the drama of doing this new every year is get my fat finger tight.
That's all right.
Okay. So, let's try to look at the first one. This is a 2018 special. Class thereof. You get these two things that just barely are significant, right? There should be 1 in 20, less than 0.05 by chance. You've got 2. I'm going to let that pass.
I was going to say, because that's kind of close enough.
That's close enough, right?
Yeah. I'm going to let that slide.
And then you go, okay, if I add another term, the white noise is perfect, but this other term is not significant. Yes? So we're kind of between a rock and a hard place, aren't we? Yes? And if we just do the MA1, order 4, look at all the shifts and outliers. And presumably, if we took care of these, we would fix the white noise, right? We'd settle between one or both of those. Either one or the other of those models. Are we good?
Yep.
It's amazing how much we've learned. This is easy stuff now, right? And the project really gets you, especially when you pick something hard and you ignore the instructor, you get to fit things many, many times, don't you?
It's practice.
It's practice, yep.
Dr. Shi,
Yes?
in terms of saying, okay, calling it good enough, even though the white noise is not perfect, you can do that. You can have a better judgment for that if it's the higher order lags.
Yes. If it was one of the lower order lags, I'd be much less loosey-goosey.
Okay.
Yes. And the fact that I've fit this model 2 years in a row, and this is the first time it popped out of my porridge, I'm going to put that down to the class of 2018 effect, okay? And I'm just going to move on. Okay, so there we are. Now, let's do a Varma 1-1. We're going to put the mark part on the AR part. We're going to have bivariate, order regressive, and moving average. So the first two terms are the same. YT minus mu 1 is phi1y, YT minus 1, phi1 2, ZT minus 1, and then we have a theta 1 times A of t minus 1, where A of t is the error for y, B of t is the error for z, so we have an MA term from the z equation in the y equation.
Yep.
So every time we just have those cross terms, right? So if you think about it, the AR piece, we have something times ZT minus 1. The MA piece in the Y part, in the MA part, we're going to have an error, -1 times the theta. We good?
I'm sorry, I couldn't get it. So AT minus 1 is the error.
AT is the error for Y. BT is the error for Z. So you're going to have A's and B's in both. Okay?
What is the seasonal there?
There isn't. We're going to get to that. Yes, this is not going to work. That's why I say we jumped in the very deep end. I'm going to give you seasonally adjusted data as the class exercise, but I want us to figure out how to do this with seasonal data. Okay? Now, we're going to get much more complicated. We're going to have seasonal terms with T-4s, aren't we? And I'll leave that up to your best judgment. So, you're going to humour me why I did this. Well, the first part's easy. I'm going to difference lag 1 and difference lag 4. I'm going to choose P equals 1. I'm going to have an AR1 term, and I'm going to have an MA1 term, and an MA4 and an MA8. Okay? I'm going to do that. Trust me.
So you use the largest order to feed both.
Well, again, I'm going to look at partials and nod.
Sure.
Stand on my head, sip a cup of tea slowly, all of that stuff. Right? The minimum information criteria doesn't work because you can't get it to do, if you say the maximum lag is 8, it's going to fit, if you put 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you don't want that. You want 4 and 8. So we have to come back to our best judgment based on autocorrelations and partials. Yes? So, here are the cross correlations. Well, lag 0 is not very interesting at all, is it? So let's get rid of that. Let's look at lag 4. Something pops out at lag 4. Something pops out at lag 7. I know it's not lag. I know it's not lag 8. And something barely pops out at lag 12. You see that?
Yep.
Then when we look at the partials, we see lag 4, we see lag 12. But the lag 12 is only for one of the variables, not both. Okay?
Why is that?
See the dot and the minus?
Oh, okay.
Did you get in lag 11, did you get a
You got a plus too. Yeah, but again, it's in that second variable. So, bite the bullet. So what I did doing this was I tried lag 4 and then the white noise test does not even close. Right? So you quickly look at this. How's the white noise test here? Right? So you do some iterations, right? Start with a really simple model. It fails the white noise test badly. Go back and look at the autocorrelations and the partials and try and add in terms. Yes? So, that's how I got up to this. And notice that, what are the significant terms? The significant terms, well, my AR1 was kind of a folly, wasn't it? Look at my AR1. 0.1, 0.12, 0.97, 0.57. I really didn't need that AR1 term, did I? But have a look at the MA8 term. Yes, 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 maybe. And the MA4 term? Yes, yes. And the MA4 term? Yes. The MA1 term? Yes, no. So you can see that I've got a model that's way too big. It's valid. It's got a bunch of junk in it, right? So what do you do at this point? Ideally, what would you like to do? Take it out. So how do you do that? Variable selection, right?
Oh.
No. That's what you usually always say. There's a thing you can restrict the model. We'll get to that. But first, we've got to make sure is the model valid and it passed the validity checks, right?
Yep.
We have a valid model which is not close to parsimonious. Are we good?
Yep.
So we try removing redundancy. And here's what I usually do is I go and say, what's the largest p-value? MA111. What's the next, well, no, sorry, the largest one is 0.9651. AR121. 0.8, 0.9, 0.78, 0.79, 0.55. Where's the 0.57? There. Yep. So I write this code that says restrict. Restrict each of these terms to be 0. Okay? You see what I did? So if we read out from the previous slide, I did these in order. AR121 has a p-value of 0.9651. MA111 has a p-value of 0.89. You see how I just put them in order?
Yep.
And the last one on that list is MA421. MA421 has a p-value of 0.555. So usually I put all of them in there until about 0.4 or 0.5.
So the reason you cannot do here kind of the gap model approach is because you will take out all the, for example, AR1 terms altogether.
Right. What we're going to do is cherry pick the ones that are not significant. And then keep our fingers crossed that when we do this, we still end up with a valid model, right?
Right.
Yes? Because if you've got a hokey model, and you start removing stuff, you're going to end up with a bad situation.
And Dr. Sheila, you said
Yeah.
you used 0.4 for the cutoff on the...
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The white hair cutoff, around 0.4.
So I still don't understand, what is that 1, 2, 1?
Yeah, 121. 121. This one. Right? It's the AR1 coefficient for variable 2, the first one. Yes?
Why do you have to give it an order if you're mentioning that?
I just do that for my own housekeeping.
It's not needed.
It's not needed. So I cherry pick off the highest p-value, the next one. Because imagine this is too harsh and the model is not valid. Then I go and take the last one I chucked off and put it back in. Seems like a reasonable process, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sam, you look troubled, mate.
Well, I think I missed something. So, like for instance, AR112, why is that not on the list?
AR112.
It's the second term from the top of the table.
It's because it's 0.129. I used a cutoff of about 0.5. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right?
So not 0.05, just
No,
0.5.
just in this thing. I want to get rid of the ones that are really highly not statistically significant. Right? And then refit. Are we good?
Yep.
Hold your breath. And notice these things have MA111. There's nothing there. Right? The coefficients are 0. Why are the coefficients 0? The term is not in the model, right? Yes? Now, what do? We look at SBC and see if we've improved. Minus 958 has become minus 978. Yes! Hallelujah! Are we good?
Yep.
Now, some people who like hypothesis tests come down here and actually have a look at these tests of restricted parameters. That's testing whether each of these things is 0 or not. Now, you know, in my statistical religion, we don't like to do a lot of hypothesis tests.
I'm the same religion, I like that.
Right? Remember that when we unglued the new PhD with his time series model, which was based on tests?
Yeah.
So the only thing that will get me a little bit cranky is if I find a really small p-value here, it says I've been too harsh. But I'm not really looking at that. I'm looking at SBC versus SBC. Then I'm going to see, is the model valid? Ah, I haven't got that. It is at this point. But have a look what we've got next. We've got a 0.23. Yes? Notice how some of these other p-values went down, right? We've got a 0.23. So I'm going to restrict MA122. Are we good, Sam? Yep. So go back to my code. It's the same except I've added an MA122. Yes? Okay. We go and we do that. SBC minus 958 minus 978 minus 982. We've squeezed a lot of juice out of that lemon, haven't we?
Yep.
Yes? And then have a look at this. Everything is significant. Last year this wasn't true.
Oh.
So what happened was that I kept going down and I threw too many things out. My SBC didn't go down, so I had to go back one. You get the drill, right?
Yes.
Well, this is variable selection.
It's a version of variable selection. It's the Sheether approach, okay? What would Sheether do? People tell me they say when they finish this class. Yes?
The listing of the restricted parameter, I know which you don't want to do, but isn't it expected that it will be all zero?
Yes, you expect them to all be zero. And you expect these p-values to be high. But remember, I'm only doing a finite number of hypothesis tests. You know, that Fuller test, what was that one they get all excited about? Dickey-Fuller test? No, please. Come on. I'd much rather trust my eyes than the Dickey-Fuller test, even though Dickey's a great player.
He's your mate.
He's my mate, yes. All right. Is it valid?
I'm going to say yes.
Oh. We're feeling really good here, right?
Tears.
We got this big model down to a valid parsimonious model, yes?
Beautiful.
With seasonality. This is really good stuff. Yes? And we used what we'd learned earlier in the semester. Right? So here are our predictions. There's only 2 points. So it just draws a line between them. So don't get too excited. It doesn't believe it's linear.
Can you go back to that one where we have so how will I explain this?
Yes, let's do that. So this is saying that, well, let's look at Lowe's sales, right? Let's look at Lowe's sales, and Lowe's is 2. So Lowe's is an AR model at lags 4 and 8, 0.9 and 0.3. Yes? An MA model, yes. An MA model, yes. And it has one term that depends on Home Depot. Yes? One term. Whose coefficient is not very big. So when I see this, I'm thinking to myself, if I want to do a Lowe's model, I'm going to use the Lowe's model just by itself with the outliers and the level shift jobbers. And that should win. Yes?
Because it's very low.
It's very low. But let's have a look at Home Depot. Home Depot, we have the AR1 coefficients that depend on each other. Right? And it's interesting, it's weird. It says here that if Lowe's sales were high in the previous quarter, Home Depot's sales are high. Then if you look at the MA terms, it depends on the lag 1 MA term for Lowe's. So the MA1 term for Lowe's matters, the MA4 term for Lowe's matters, and the MA8 term for Lowe's matters. So Home Depot is more connected with Lowe's than Lowe's is to Home Depot.
So that means if we have to do a transfer function, will it be, which one is going to be the dependent variable?
Well, we're not doing a transfer function here. So what's the difference? Let's take the top one. If we want to model Home Depot as a function of Home Depot and Lowe's. The transfer function says you're only allowed one input, aren't you? Or separate. You know, you can have Y modeled as a function of X and Z. Whereas here, we can have all myriad of things. We can have moving average terms, we can have AR terms, we can have seasonal terms. So it's a much broader model. And the only thing that it's a much broader model than transfer function. The transfer function is two series that are highly related. The thing that you're not sure about is the lag. When the price of oil goes up, how long does that take to affect oil rig counts? Yes?
So last year you had different terms?
Last what?
Last year you had different terms?
Last year, because I didn't have as much data, last year I got to the point where if I got all the variables down that were significant, the model wasn't valid.
So isn't this a little bit overfitting to the data? Because, I mean, or what's the real model if it changes every year?
Well, again, it didn't change every year. It just things that I had more data in order to make the thing look significant. That's all. This is still a relatively short series. Remember, we're working in accordance. Sure. And I'm not betting my house on anything, as you'll see. But I'm still a young man. You know, when we're doing your cohort number 4, right? When I'm doing cohort number 49 with Javier here and I'm in the wheelchair, I'm going to say, I remember cohort number 4 who gave me all this grief, and I've sent out a bunch of emails, lads, have a look how good my model from cohort number 4 was.
You're going to miss us.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm going to cry myself to sleep, mate, every night. Yeah, with the cheap bottle of wine. I'm going to look at that bottle every night when I go to bed.
Well, by the time you do cohort 49, it will be a valuable bottle of wine.
It will, mate.
You'll thank us then.
It'll mature. If I get a blocked drain, mate, I know what to fix it with.
Dr. Schubert.
Yes.
Having more data, you're talking about your...
So here we only started in 1993. We're trying to fit quite a complicated model, aren't we?
Right.
To something that has, what? Who can do the math? 93 to 2016, that's 14 years.
114 years.
93 to 16 is 20-something years, right?
23.
Times 4. We've got about 100 points. We're fitting a few parameters here, aren't we?
Right.
So, yes? Now, have a look at the two. How do we do? We get the overall pattern pretty well, don't we?
Pretty good.
So what's the blue and the red?
The red is the true data. So when it's low, we don't get it. They're the outliers. Around 2009, 2008. Yes? We don't get those. The Varma is the green, and the Sarima.
So the Sarima was the one that would fit in jump, right?
Yes. Now, have a look at what happens when we look at the within. So these are the residuals within. Which does better? The Varma or the Sarima? Does slightly better. Not a lot, just slightly better, right? And the outliers don't look as pronounced because we have more flexibility with these cross terms. Yes? Yes? And then this is lows. And who does better here? The Sarima does better, which is what we expected because there weren't many cross terms in that one, right?
Yep.
So if we were here, we would, for the Home Depot model, we would potentially look at a bivariate model. For the Lowe's model, we say, don't need the other one. Let's put in outliers and level shifts for the first. Now, yes, just one more sentence. So my experience is ARIMA models are pretty tough to explain. Now you're going to talk about bivariate ones with cross terms. Good luck with that. Right? So that's the thing. You have to have a pretty sophisticated audience if you're going to convince them to do bivariate ones. Alejandro.
So So can we go back to the first slide when you put the code and you select the piece and the cube that you were going to use for the bar?
The very first slide.
Well, it's a
Code slide.
Yeah, so let's go back to that at the end, all right?
Okay.
I want to finish this story and then we go back to it. Okay?
Steven?
Yes.
So how do you overcome the knowledge barrier? Do you know how to talk to a non-technical audience about either these type of models?
Right. Well, you do it in stages. You'd say, do you think our sales are affected by our competitors' sales? Think about it in your own thing. How many people think their sales are affected by their competitors' sales? A lot, right? And wouldn't you want to just model this to try and understand? Yes? So that's how I get my foot in the door there. I'd say I'm going to use this to understand the competitors' effects on us. And then I always live and die by how good the predictions are. If we can get a model that predicts better than the in-house one, we did a trivariate, we did a small, medium and large models, and they use it. The snack food manufacturer.
Right. So I work with a lot of accountants, and so they like to see what the numbers are, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. So if you can show them the forecasts are better, and then as I say, this says that we're affected by our competitors, and the effect goes back 4 quarters, 8 quarters. I think would be interested in that, would you not?
I believe so.
Yes, and the love of my life is a CFO. She would get very excited to know how that worked, right? Just in general.
Right.
Right? Everybody. That's the really sexy part about this. How does this, right? And imagine if all the coefficients are positive. You want them to do well and you to do well. But if it's a substitution thing, you want to compete. I am one of the most competitive people in the whole world. Javier knows. If we get a good potential student, some of you know, we're like, who are you going to choose between us and who? Right? I will work my patootie off to get students to choose, high quality ones to choose Texas A&M. Isn't that really an interesting piece of information? If their sales go up, does that affect our sales in a positive or negative way? People would crawl on their hands and knees to understand this information, would they not? Cameron.
Could this be used in kind of a supply-demand sense where the slopes aren't the same, one's going down while the other one's going up?
You can dress it up as economics, right? Yeah. I'm an empirical scientist. Right? So yes, I don't have a problem talking about that.
So negative coefficient between y and z is going to tell you that there are substitution.
Well, let's look. Let's go and look at the one that is where there are a lot of coefficients, right? So Home Depot has a lot of Lowe's coefficients. An AR coefficient, an MA4 coefficient, an MA8 coefficient. Yes? And have a look at the size of this. Look at this. So this is 1. This one here is 0.53. Not shabby, right? Remember the MA coefficients typically go from -1 to +1? Yes? Whereas if you come down here to Lowe's, you say, this is really a Lowe's story. It doesn't really, Home Depot doesn't really affect us much.
So that coefficient is telling me that I'm affected by the sales that you had 8 months ago or 8 quarters ago?
Yeah, 8 quarters ago.
But it's also negative.
Yeah, this is about errors. Remember these things? Just one conversation, guys. Right? The coefficients, if it's MA, that's talking about the error in the forecast, right? If the error in the forecast was positive last time and we're going to put a 0.8 next to it, it's going to be positive going forward. Now, if it's a substitution thing, you'd expect big negative coefficients, wouldn't you? The lower their sales, the higher yours. Yes? you're not going to buy the medium pack of snack food because the large one's on sale.
So Dr. Sheeter.
Yes?
Dr. Jones used to say segment and conquer. That's one of his mantras.
Oh, yes, he does. We're a little bit different. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yeah, but my question, let's say...
Segment and conquer. Yep.
If you look at this type of problem, right? Maybe in the past, company A affected B, but then company B grew so much that it reversed their relationship.
Right.
Would you fit different time series relationships with time, like segmenting behavior and then another behavior?
Good. So here's the deal. This is quarterly data across the whole company. Imagine we had data on complementary products. Then I think the models would provide... So I would agree with Jones. We need to look at this in segments. So my understanding is Lowe's makes a lot of money out of the plants. As Javier and I know. The spring comes, what do? You go down to Lowe's, you put a smile on your face and say, wouldn't it be great if we bought all these plants and planted them? Hey, Javier? You spend the whole weekend doing that stuff. Turns out that Lowe's makes a lot of money out of those plants. So if you could segment and conquer and look at Lowe's and Home Depot, the outdoor stuff, right, the grill stuff, the seasonal stuff. The guy from Home Depot last year did a model on snow blowers. Yeah, snow blower sales in New York. In New York. And New York City had high snow blower sales. I made them call up the store managers. Why would you buy a snow blower in New York City? The doorman blows the snow. So it was Queens and the Bronx was called part of New York City and everybody had a snow blower. So yes, I agree with Jones, but I don't have that data because I don't work for the company. And you can imagine at this very high level, we still get some relationship. Imagine down at the segment and product level. Think about AT&T and Verizon. Wouldn't you love to get hold of that data? Yes? So let's look at the pros. When the so-called terms are large in a practical sense, terms need to be large in a practical sense and statistically significant, the Varma-based predictions can be substantially better than separate predictions. You've got to end up, when it's seasonal, doing a visually based model selection, which is more complicated, and there's no straightforward way to handle outliers and level shifts. So I try and do both. I do the first one of them. Separate models, if I'm happy with that, I have a cup of tea and congratulate myself. And then I go and say, take a deep breath, let's see if we can figure out a Varma. Because things potentially could get better, right? Now, Alejandro, let's go back. You're going to be close to the record here, mate. I think the record was for height 110 to slide 3, where I went back.
No, I think any of that you have the code.
The code is the one at the start. Is it the code for generating the data or the...
No, generating the code for...
Fitting the model.
Yes.
Right there.
So, how did you come up with that P and the Q values? 1 for
The computer on the shoulders.
Okay, can you explain me your thought logic?
Yeah, I thought I already did, mate, but obviously not very effective. So I looked at the autocorrelations and the partials. I said 4s and 7s and 8s and nothing much at 12. I saw something here probably at 12 and something at 4. So what I originally did was I went up to lag 12. 4, 8, 12. The 12 stuff, nothing was near significant. The model was valid. Chop that. So let's go back to 8. Okay? Because the minimum information criterion thing doesn't work straightforwardly because it wants to fit, if you put 4 and 8, it wants to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We don't want all those terms. Andrew.
As a general rule of thumb, should we only consider cross correlation
So, yep, you could do it that way. Again, these things are at best guides. So what I'm going to do is put my hand on my heart and say, do the best of my ability, come up with a good farmer model. Okay? And I'm going to allow all the cross terms and then restrict them out. But imagine you see something where none of these things are significant, right? It's all just Y goes with Y and Z goes with Z. Yes, you're probably wasting your time. But I'm the eternal optimist. Yes, Mary.
In your experience, is this a useful method to include many more variables, like 5 or 10 different factors, or does it just get too complicated?
I've seen it work with up to 4. Imagine you have different regions, or, right, how does divide the US up into 4 regions, how does it work? Okay. But if you can't write them. So when we think of competitors, do we typically think of 1 or 2 competitors, don't we? That's the way I think about this. Yes, there was a question from a distance person. Go ahead, please.
I have one more question about explanation, Dr. Stevens.
Yeah.
So, let's say that you had to testify in front of a regulatory body.
Oh, I'd love
This
to
would
do
not
that, mate. Oh, thank you. Please get me a job, but I'm foreign.
I unfortunately am the opposite of you. I hope I don't ever have to do that. But I probably will. Would you want to use this type of model? You wouldn't want to use this type of model then, correct?
I would always have this in my back pocket. I would try and put up the simplest model possible, but if anybody started asking me about the competitor effects, I'd have this in my back pocket.
Okay.
So I always try and start with the simplest because I love reeling people in. They get their expert that tears up your simple model and you go, hey, that's a great idea. Let me show you this slide. Got any other ideas? Let me show you this slide. But if you start with the weeds, oh man, you're going to get arguments about the 3rd decimal place and all this irrelevant stuff. It's like, remember this class on a bad day? Poor Dr. Jones, he didn't get past slide number 5, right? It was like he was listening to a pinball machine. He'd be over here talking, and then a distance student asks, Greg, be over here. And he goes, look, I think he said it to Diogo. Yeah, we're going to do that in week 12, mate. This is week 1. Come on. And he loved teaching that class. So you've got to start simply, right? Anyway.
Yeah, I've had that experience with my forecasting models internally. That's why I asked the question about externally as well. With the regulatory
If
body.
you ever get invited, I'll be happy to be your secret coach. How about that?
That would be great. Thanks.
All right. So,
Dr. Shearer.
yes.
So in this case, even if lag 8 was the likely correlation,
Yeah.
lag 7 pop out.
It does sometimes. Remember, we've seen this before.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking in our project is a yearly effect,
Yeah.
but lag 11 pop out. So is
Yeah,
that
so it's saying
common?
that there's something happens around 11 or 12 months. It says put something in there.
So it's surrounding that lag. It doesn't
Surrounding, yes. Remember, these partials and that are very kind of simple. They're not a whole model approach. You're much better when you fit the whole model. Yes? So have a look at this class exercise. I used part of this on last year's exam, where I showed you one model. It was valid. It's not the best model if you look it up. But what I want you to do is develop a model for CPI for new and used cars. Consumer Price Index, right? So, Economics 101, who's going to explain how new cars CPI is going to work? What does that mean? Yeah.
Inflation.
Yeah, it's like how much is the price going up, right? Yes? And if we're selling, let's take used cars. In the last recession, what happened to the price of used cars? They went down, didn't they? If you had a big SUV and the price of oil was very expensive, you couldn't give that away. You know, because I was foreign, I'd go to the rental car place and say, sir, you've been upgraded to this 42-cylinder car that you have to keep a gas station inside at all times when you drive it. Because nobody in their right mind will drive one of those things. Right? You get the drift. So you'd imagine that if new cars are not selling, I don't know, you'd imagine that there should be some cross terms here, shouldn't there? Yes, related markets. Yes? So what I'd like to do is to get you to do that. This will be a good experience. It's in between the two. You can use the minimum information criterion. It's seasonally adjusted. Seasonally adjusted. You might have to do some differencing, but you're still good. You can figure out the code. Right? You just use the minic thing. So, then I'm going to wander around the groups and talk about projects. Yes? And then in the last class, I'm going to go through the solution to this, and I'm still working on my taxi fare solution. Taxi fare revenue for daily. I'm hopefully going to go through that too. Does that sound like a good plan?
Sounds like a great plan.
So if you think back, we've learnt an amazing amount, right? But there are some fundamentals. What are the fundamentals? Stationary. We model stationary series, don't we?
Yes, we do.
We get things by differencing them to make them mean, to make them horizontal. The mean constant. We seasonally difference to get out the seasonal effects. We log transform to make the variance constant. We use the computer on the shoulders and the eyeballs to figure out what kind of models to consider. Yes?
Yep.
Not tests. That's good. And we can beat SAS Forecast Studio. Yeah.
And a young PhD.
Yes, SAS Forecast Studio. Transfer function models are a real challenge. What's the big issue there? What lags do you put in, right? And what you have to do is pre-whiten each, don't you? Yep. And sometimes when you pre-whiten, all the significant lags go on holidays, don't they? You end up with nothing.
Zero.
Zilch, nada. This was not a good idea, was it? Anyway, I'll see you in your groups. So,
Do we have to come back or?
no, you don't have to come back.